This is part two of these little video clips, and what I want to do right now is, okay, the name of the website is called 8 Eagles Gather, okay, and I'm going to tell you the reason why I chose eagles, and that's because when I was very, very young, probably about 10 years of age, I had a very, very interesting experience with an eagle, and kind of ever since then, it's been a sign for me in various places and proximities. The presence of eagles has represented for me as a signal and a sign of His presence, meaning the Lord's presence, very, very close and very, very near. But when I was 10 years old, we were visiting a farm north of Winnipegosis, kind of in the wilderness up there along the lake shore, Lake Winnipegosis, where my dad grew up when he was young. And my dad actually got orphaned when he was about 5 years old, because both his parents well, his dad was older, but his dad passed away when my dad was 5, and so his mother couldn't look after him, so he was kind of orphaned and looked after by another family. And even as we speak now, I can tell you that one of the things that happened in the First World War was that my dad had 5 or 6 sisters, and they were all kind of fell to the Spanish flu, okay, fell ill and passed away in around the time of the First World War, which was around 1917 to 1919, somewhere in that range. And so only the 3 brothers survived, my dad being one of them. And because he was so young, he went to live at this farm, never got officially adopted by them, but grew up with them. And so one day we were visiting, and I always used to love visiting up there and going to this farm because it was on a beautiful lakeshore setting with a beautiful beach. And so the family was all inside kind of having coffee or doing whatever, and one of the younger guys in the family said to me, do you want to come with me? I want to show you something. And so, I mean, I was eager, and my mother, dad didn't say no, and this guy was kind of a little bit on the wild side or whatever. And so he says, come on, he says, I want to show you something. So I had no idea where I was going to go and what I was going to see or experience, but I was, being very trustworthy. So he took me to this little building, which was actually a little ice shack with skids on the bottom, where they would take horses at that point in time, in the winter time presumably, I would imagine, and go to the lake and with this and bring water up from the lake and that sort of thing. But anyway, he went inside this little building, and he said to me, he says, well, come on up, he says, come on inside. And so the door stayed open, and I wasn't afraid. I was very, very kind of calm and trusting of this young fellow. And all of a sudden, I realized that when I went inside, standing right by the edge of the door, I was standing right beside a bald eagle. It was fully alive and may have been hurt or whatever, and the young fellow was maybe getting him back into good shape or whatever. But I'm standing right beside a full-size bald eagle, fully alive, and I mean, my head was maybe a foot away from his head. And I mean, I remember as it was just yesterday, he looked over at me and looked me in the eyes, and I looked at him, and maybe something would have happened if I'd have shown a little bit of fright or whatever the case may be. But nevertheless, that was my first encounter, and this eagle stood, at least he was kind of on a perch or whatever, and probably stood in terms of height to maybe about 3 feet high. But all he did was look at me. He wasn't afraid at all, and neither was I. And so a few minutes passed by, and I was able to leave and think about that experience. So it was really, really interesting that at such a young age that I happened to have that experience, and one that I'll never forget. And like I said, that eagles have been kind of a presence thing with me and with my wife as well over the years. So I wanted to share that with you, and this is then the end of part 2 for this little video clip series.